Hello and welcome to the Movie Podcast. My name is Shahbaz, and joining alongside me here in the ring to fight for the championship of the Movie Podcast belt, of course, is Daniel. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Put them up. Imagine they still fought like the old tough strongmen. They're just like this. Well, come on here.
You gotta wind it up. Yeah.
You go into the octagon with that type of attitude. Hey, Shahbaz, I'm doing well. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. Those people would have been beaten up in today's standards. Like, they've been bullied first, and then they would have just been absolutely destroyed.
There's no protection. Like, you're just boom, like you're done.
Like the wind up alone.
Yeah. They were a tougher generation, though. Tougher generation.
Yeah, they would take it. Pow, right in the kisser.
You know, we had the opportunity to watch The Smashing Machine way back in TIFF, which now feels like forever ago. But we're so excited because the film is finally coming out in theaters. We also have an interview up with the real Mark Kerr, who did not hit us and was actually one of the nicest people we've ever spoken to. And of course, director Benny Safdie, which is also, what a guy. What an absolute gentleman that man was.
You know, until somebody builds a bigger bomb.
You gotta do it in his accent, though. No. It's okay. Okay. Don't worry about it.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it.
Oh no!
I'm ready. Put me in.
Give it to me. Put me in the ring.
But man, like Benny Safdie, though, man, just like somebody who we've loved for so long. Who's done so many incredible films and projects. I mean, oh my God, why am I blanking on the name of the show that he just did last year with Emma Stone? The Curse. What a fantastic show. Insane ending to that show. And just to see what has gone on, like for the rest of his career. And now he has a movie coming out this year. His brother Josh has a movie coming out this year. It's the battle of the Safdies, but it's this is such an interesting choice for Benny, and that's why I'm really excited to talk about Smashing Machine with you guys while I throw and smash my mic around.
Yeah, don't
because
do
I'm
that.
just
pick it up, dude, one hand, and just yell into it.
I'm just gonna. I should just have the mic coming down from the ceiling.
Yeah, you should,
and just like we'll talk from the octagon that way.
Oh man, yeah, we had a fantastic time with this film. We had a fantastic time with these interviews, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into it. Before we do, we are the Movie Podcast. You can check us out wherever the Movie Podcast is playing. And that means that's pretty much every single podcast platform, YouTube. Sometimes we show up at conventions and we do live shows. It's impossible to predict where we're going to be next. And the only way to know where we're going to be next is if you're following us on social media. So check out the links down below for all that information, because there's a lot of good information in there. And you can also join our Discord. If you want to talk about the Smashing Machine, that's a great place to do it, because that's how you can talk to us directly, live. We're not recording that conversation. That is happening as it's happening. Huge shout out to our friends over at VBS as well for inviting us to watch this movie, and also for inviting us to these interviews. So go ahead and check out the interviews as well once you're done listening to this, or you're coming from the interviews and you're like, wow, now I want to know what you thought of this film. So here we are. Daniel, please take it away on your first reactions to The Smashing Machine.
There's been so much talk about The Smashing Machine and Dwayne Johnson taking on a more serious role. We're seeing a different side of DJ to come, The Smashing Machine, and he's taking on this seminal figure from the UFC worlds. And people are like, is this Dwayne coming for his Oscar? Is this Dwayne, is this him turning a new leaf? Is this him going down a brand new path acting wise? And I think it's a little bit of a mix of everything in this. I think Dwayne Johnson is really solid in The Smashing Machine. And it's really incredible to let him, be good in a movie and let him showcase a more vulnerable side. Because I think what Dwayne Johnson does so well is, yes, he is this big hulking figure, but he has such a big heart. And you hear him talk so much in all of his interviews about how much, he cares about what he's doing, his mana, his, the power that he always wants to bring to these roles. And then sometimes he's talking about a film like, Red One. And you're like, dude, you're talking so passionately about this movie, but it's not, the movie itself doesn't live up to what you're talking about it. And he does live up to that in The Smashing Machine. And I think Dwayne Johnson is so damn good in The Smashing Machine. He's so fun to watch. He's giving it his all. And it's the product of him actually, really diving in and getting lost into a movie and getting lost into a role. Yeah, you're going to see Dwayne Johnson. It's hard not to. He has a very iconic figure and body from the years that we've seen him in wrestling and all his roles. But, you really do get lost in, they do some incredible makeup with his face where you just, it's a little like uncanny valley, but not in a bad way, where it's like, I recognize him, but I don't recognize him. And I think first and foremost, when it comes to Smashing Machine, it's Dwayne Johnson's performance. He's great in this film. I wish that he took it to a little bit, he dialed it up to a little bit more in some other places, but I think that's more of an issue when it comes to the script of this film, where, you have a solid script. It's not, breaking any rules or, breaking any conventions that we've seen in a lot of fighting films, especially, but it's solid. And I think that is because you have somebody like Benny Safdie, who is a fantastic director in his own right, and we get to see him be a solo director now, taking the reins, writing this film, directing this film, producing this film with Dwayne Johnson. And I think you get a great, obviously combination between the two of them. And, we now know that they're going to go on to make another movie together where Dwayne is playing, was he playing an elf or a banana? He's playing something.
I think
there's something
it's a
that
lizard,
he's doing.
right?
A lizard. I was like, I know it's something random that he's
An
playing.
elf banana lizard.
Lizard was my third guess.
Yeah.
It was a banana lizard. But no, it's nice to see that they have a great, I think, camaraderie with one another. And what I love so much in this film, this is a movie that's taking place in the 90s into the early 2000s, is that it just gets that look right. This is a movie that's shot on film. It's shot with IMAX cameras. There's that shot of Benny Safdie, for some reason, having the IMAX camera like on his shoulder. And it's like, you never really see shots like that. So it's so cool to see him using this format and using the different film versions, almost like the way they did in Steve Jobs, where it's like, listen, as we're going through the story, we're going from a more film look to more digital look. But in here, we're getting that 16 millimeter, we're getting the 35 millimeter, we're getting the IMAX, we're getting the VistaVision, whatever formats that he's using. Please correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And they're also shooting on VHS. So there's a lot of different visual looks in the Smashing Machine. And I think it's really cool to see how Safdie navigates between them when he's telling his story. I think there are some moments in the Smashing Machine that feel a little shallow, and I think that comes more to Emily Blunt's character. I don't think she's given a lot to do in this movie other than to be somebody for Dwayne Johnson to argue with. Their scenes together, though, are really powerful and also very, you get that secondhand cringe or embarrassment because you're like, oh, I'm in the middle of watching someone's messy breakup. I don't want to be seeing this, but that's a human reaction. That is not a reaction to the film itself. But the fights in this film, they're so well choreographed. Obviously, when you have someone like Dwayne Johnson, who has spent his whole life surrounded by the world of wrestling, they know the angles. He knows the shots to use in a movie like this. And it's great to see how he collaborated with Benny to pull that off. Smashing Machine, a really well-crafted film. I wish it went a little bit higher. I wish it went to the levels that movies like Warrior did or The Fighter did. But for Dwayne Johnson to be kind of starting this now back half of his career where he wants to take a little bit more risks, and, he's working with Scorsese on one of his next films, I want to see more of this Dwayne Johnson. And this makes me excited to see more of what Dwayne Johnson can do in a more dramatic role. Because we really haven't seen him take something, as out of like left field like this since Pain and Gain. So it's been a little while since we've seen Dwayne Johnson really, put on like a performance like this. And I'm here for it. I want to see more of it.
I think one of the things that we almost have to get out of the way here a bit is this Dwayne Johnson's Oscar film? I don't know. I think he does a great performance in this movie, but at no point while watching it I was like, oh yeah, this is the best performance of the year, or this is the performance that lands him the Oscar. I think this kind of puts him in more of a conversation than it ever has before. And that's a great place to be with a movie like this. But I don't know if it's the one that's like, yeah, I'm winning the award this time. So I'm really curious to see how audiences react to it when it comes out, because you've already been seeing people that are in the industry react to it already and kind of been on a similar page of like, it's a really good performance, but not sure if it's the year's best. So I am curious to see how it kind of continues forward. What I loved about this film, though, was you kind of get to understand the Safdie brothers a little bit more as well. You kind of get to see who brings what to the table, and seeing what Benny has contributed in his previous films is a lot more prominent, obviously, in The Smashing Machine. I think what Benny does a really good job is getting you lost in the visual escape of it all. And like Daniel mentioned, there's so many different formats this movie's being shot in. And one of the first, moments of this film is you're going from a VHS tape to, a more standard modern look of today. And the way they do it feels so seamless. The way they kind of pull you into that escape, I was like, oh, like that is probably the best I've ever seen someone show the 90s so well. I'm not very familiar with Mark Kerr's story. I never looked him up or kind of figured out who he was. I kind of wanted this movie to do that job for me. And I don't know if the film fully did. I think it really focuses on a couple of years of his life, and it teaches you enough about him in that moment. But I didn't know much else. It did intrigue me to learn more and maybe watch the documentary one day, but I didn't kind of leave this film going like, oh, like this guy had, he was so complex and everything else. And it kind of follows a lot of the very typical sports movie tropes that you always see. To Daniel's point, when you talk about Emily Blunt, she is a fantastic actress. She's so good in whatever she does. But in this film, it's a bit of a disservice to her because her scenes kind of just feel sprinkled in, almost like they were from the cutting room floor, and they're just kind of plopped into here, and they're meant to just introduce some tension because maybe we haven't had some tension in a while, and that's kind of what they do. It's fun seeing Dwayne fully bald, wearing like a 90s button-up shirt with like a pirate earring on. Like, it's always these really great moments that you kind of get to see. But I think as a whole, this film does a really good job of capturing the visual aesthetic of that era, capturing the fights really well. But it doesn't really do much beyond that, and it kind of finds itself just being okay.
And I agree with that. I think, with a film that has so much riding on it, especially with, Dwayne's breakthrough dramatic performance, I was left after watching it, having this feeling of there should be more to this movie than I've just watched. I felt like Dwayne, as much as a great performance it was, I still saw Dwayne Johnson. I couldn't disconnect him from his persona. He's such a marketing, giant that it's hard to like see him in a role that's serious. And it's almost like a disservice, like it's his worst enemy is himself, right? Like it's a disservice to the movie where I couldn't look past this. And I think if it was anyone else, I might have been able to see Mark Kerr. I didn't see Mark Kerr. I saw Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's also a movie that's physical, so it's like, yeah, this guy is a giant man, and I know The Rock is always going to be in these physical roles. It's not like he played an accountant who fell in love with, like it's just the same type of movie, even though it's different in the way the story's told. So as much as he's good, like, I'm hopeful that he does more roles that are completely opposite of what he is known for. But my biggest compliment for this movie is the visual language of it. It feels so good. The sequence where you're watching his matches through like a VHS tape, and then it cuts to the film, and then it cuts to like these big IMAX sequences, which I think is only one. They're choreographed in such a way just to feel nostalgia without throwing the nostalgia at you. And I think Mark also said that in our interview, where it's like when I watched it, I just felt like, oh, this reminds me of something, even though I don't remember it this way. It just feels like this was part of my life. It was captured at the right time. Benny Safdie is a fantastic director in that sense. But I felt that with Emily Blunt's character and just the overall story, there's a lot that's just left on the table. I just didn't feel the sorrow behind what was being shown to me on screen. Here was a guy who's going through drug addiction, kind of feels like it was glossed over. He's dealing with the end of his career. He's dealing with a relationship that he doesn't know, is it the right choice for him? And even as a viewer, I felt like I don't know how to feel in these situations. I feel confused, and I don't feel the drama that I wanted from these sequences. So there's a lot of hits, there's a lot of misses, but overall I think it's a good start for Benny as a director. I think it's a great start for Dwayne if he continues doing it. I think if he stops from, and I don't think he will, I don't think his production company will, but if $7 doesn't make everything he makes, then it would feel more genuine too. But I'm in this boat of I liked it, but there's a lot of things I did not like about it.
I think one of the things that you touched upon, Anthony, was the physicality of this film, and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, being such a big guy. I think one of the things that we talked about as well when we left this film was The Rock is 53 years old, but he's playing a 29-year-old. And I know that might not seem like a big deal because we always see, wrestlers always look a lot older than they are. But when you kind of start to see some of the footage towards the end of the film where they're like, oh, this is what Mark Kerr was like. I'm like, oh, I always saw a late 40s, early 50s man throughout this entire film. To know that he was just a kid in a way, it's kind of shocking sometimes to see those moments.
They're actually the same age. It's
they
weird,
are, right? They're a couple of years apart, yeah. Only 4 years apart.
A couple of years apart, but he's playing a younger version of him.
Yeah.
And it's just, even with makeup.
And that's where I wondered too. Where I'm like, okay, obviously it's based on his story, but are they going exactly because it felt like he was like a fighter like towards the end of his career in this, but also like when you're looking at the real story, it's like, oh, this feels like a role that Dwayne almost would have played, or maybe this is the type of role that I think Dwayne wanted to play early in his career, but couldn't because he didn't have the cachet that he has now. And it's like, oh, I'm finally getting the chance to play the type of character that I've always wanted to play. And again, it's great to see that. Like, when you have somebody like, Robert Downey Jr. was the same thing. Obviously, he had a huge, repertoire of films that he did before he joined the MCU. But once he joined the MCU, it's like he went 12 years straight of being in the Marvel machine. And then after that, he was in Oppie, and he's like, oh, I get to, act differently again. And then now he's kind of back in the Marvel machine, which is funny. But I really do hope that, coming out of this film, it's amazing to see, like Anthony said, the visual language and the visuals that have come out of this film. And I think this is the type of care you need for a movie like this. And it's like Benny Safdie, I think, is overqualified for bringing something like this to life. It's like, this is, he brought exactly the film that I think he wanted to make and what Dwayne wanted to make. But I think it has the same shortfalls or the shortcomings of so many boxing and fighting movies where it's just like, oh, it's, there's someone who's struggling with addiction. And again, not to gloss over that, but I feel like the movie glossed over that a little bit. And you wanted to see that go a little bit deeper. You have a girlfriend / wife who's doesn't want you to fight. And then that's also something that you're going to have to deal with. And then you're also dealing with injuries and then coming back from that and losing a fight. So it's like so many of these kind of tropes and these archetypes that we've seen so many times, where a movie like Creed, obviously leaned into it, but also did it, and kind of, reversed them a little bit and had it, to keep it fresh that way. But this one, it's like, oh, we're getting a very traditional by the numbers fighting movie, for better and for worse.
And I don't mean any disrespect to Mark, but I just didn't feel like his story was strong enough to be on the big screen. And maybe I have to watch his documentary. Maybe that will be a better setup for him. But even the premise of this movie is, here's a guy no one remembers. He was, he led the UFC. He was that person that brought the UFC to what it is now. And I almost felt like, is that what the movie's about? Like, they didn't feel that his story was, so they're just telling it. Like, it just was a little weird for me that the troubles that he went through, I never felt like they were strong enough to be like, yeah, I felt for that guy. I felt so bad for him. And maybe because we got the ending of his career and not the whole journey. I don't know if you felt the same way, but that's how I felt. Like, I just didn't think it was strong enough to be like, this is a story I really want to know more about.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, let's get to our final recommendations for The Smashing Machine. Anthony, please kick us off.
I'm going to say I think you should watch it for its performances and for the cinematography and just the movie making itself. But, honestly, I think it's a skip it.
Anthony, I totally get where you're coming from. I think for me, I will say maybe something you just add to your queue. There's great performances in it, and there's some really cool visual language to this film. Story-wise, again, doesn't ignite the fire, but definitely add it to your queue. It's something that I think, some people will really, really get something out of. Daniel, please take us away.
I think, for myself, I think there's a lot of good in this film, and there's also a lot that you've seen before. For me, I would say something to watch at home. If you are looking to see it in the theater, then, I think this is a good Tuesday movie. But yeah, I would say it's not one that you immediately have to go out and see. But I think the visuals and what I think Benny did on the big screen is enough to warrant just like checking it out and being interested in it, especially for the time period itself. And just to see, what Dwayne Johnson is, capable of doing outside of, the larger movie making machine.
Absolutely. Of course, The Smashing Machine will be in theaters October 3rd. Huge shout out to our friends over at VVS for inviting us to watch this film and also for letting us do these really cool interviews. We're the Movie Podcast. Check out our show notes down below for where you can find us and where you can follow us and where you can talk to us. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.